Welcome to the All Access Podcast from the experts at MES. Each episode, we'll talk about technology topics, trends, or solutions that manufacturers need to know in today's rapidly evolving times. Sit back, enjoy the discussion, and let us know what you think.
Well, hello, my manufacturing friends. Welcome back to the All Access Podcast. I'm really excited to have you guys listening in on this particular episode because, every once in a while, we call an audible over here at the All Access Podcast. And especially when it comes to topics that interest you out there. How do we know that? Because during events, we get asked a lot of questions about this, that, and the other that comes up. And so the more questions that we get, the more we have to believe that there is a genuine interest towards a certain topic. And this is one of them. And so for this particular episode, I'm really excited to have our good friend Marty Chaput again with us, where we tackle again the questions that all of you guys are having in regards to MES, manufacturing execution systems. And we have been asked multiple times at events or constant questions by clienteles of Tebas, what is this MES? What can you do? And in order to bring it to all of you, we've invited Marty again to this podcast. Marty, welcome back again.
Thank you for the nice introduction here, Michael. I'm glad to be back. Yeah, it's a great topic. A lot of interest. People are really starting to see the value of an MES and really what it does is functionality. So yeah, great to be back.
All of a sudden, it's exploding with interest. Is that what you're seeing on your side?
Yes, absolutely. And one of the most noticeable things is that we've seen now job postings for manufacturing execution system managers. So that's really showing me that the industry, as a whole, is now adopting the MES idea. Yeah.
Absolutely, it's maturing. But before we get all into the nitty gritty about what you're seeing and all the items that come up, I think we need to take a step back and we need to explain what is an MES. So with that question, what is an MES, Marty? Explain to the listeners a little bit that are new to this entire thing and explain what it is.
Absolutely. Yeah. And great point, Michael. A lot of people are still kind of unsure of the definition. And really, to put it in the simplest terms, the way that I can explain it in a few words is it's really about the digitalization of your shop floor, right? To be able to kind of simulate the outcome before it actually happens regarding capacity and, resource, anomalies like maybe breakdowns or preventative maintenance planning. All of this can be considered in that perspective as well. So that's really the way I like to explain it, the easiest and maybe simplest way.
Right. And I always prepare for these types of conversations that we have with our host, with our guests on the podcast. And I did a little bit of research on my own, and I found a term that really brings light to the difference between an ERP system and a MES system. You're interested to learn about what I found there?
Absolutely. I'm always open to learn more.
So the MES, the question is an ERP an MES system? Okay. And one of the answers that of course comes up, or the difference between an MES and ERP system, is that an MES system, manufacturing execution system, it tracks and collects the information. So it gathers all the data and it gathers all the information from your shop floor of the parts that you're manufacturing. And it tries to then identify potential quality issues in order to improve the processes rather than just producing or supplying the data on the products that are to be produced, because essentially that's what an ERP system does. It just provides data on the parts that you're going to produce, but it does not feed back that quality loop in order to improve their processes, in order to find out where you are in the process, in order to recognize if you're still making it on time. Is that an adequate description of the difference between ERP and MES?
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%, Michael. Really, your ERP is giving you reported data after the fact, where an MES system, as you mentioned, is gathering the data in real time, live, and giving you the ability to adjust your schedule or to be proactive rather than being reactive.
But why is it now all of a sudden? I mean, ERP has been around for quite some time now already. I mean, almost every shop that I walk into and that you're walking into, they have an ERP system already existing. But now all of a sudden, the industry is just craving for MES. Why is that happening now?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, I think people are finally getting to the point of realizing that the Excel sheets that they're running around with from machine to machine, for scheduling or to the assembly crew is just not adequate for being proactive and really utilizing your capacity to its best potential. And we had a lot of great, skilled, experienced tradesmen that have been in this industry forever, and a lot of them are retiring now. So they've taken that knowledge and all of their great, we always say don't trust your gut feeling. We'd rather work with data. And that's kind of the world that we're leading into with an MES. But these guys who had the great, instincts or intuition, the gut feelings of how the schedule would best be worked with on an Excel sheet, they're all retiring now. So we're losing that knowledge and that skill. So that's why we need to really back it up with data and having relational data that could then in the future be used for artificial intelligence. And that's really the way the industry is shifting.
Yeah. And a gentleman that I just talked to recently, the point was made that if you don't use data nowadays and feed back this data into the production stream, then potentially you're losing out. And data is everything nowadays.
It is, and people have been collecting data for decades and not knowing what to do with it. And then that's a big problem as well. Where again, when you give with an MES, it's all relational data that's related to a job, to a resource, to the effort, estimated effort, so budget versus actual. And this is really the useful data that is becoming more and more utilized. Because the data that we were collecting before, sure, it kind of had some good points to it, but it wasn't really related completely to all of the data points that it should have been for connecting and analyzing.
Right. I think all of us are analyzing data every single day, even though we don't really think about it, but we're always analyzing data. And at times, I mean, even if you're just looking at your insurance, your home insurance or your car insurance, all of this, and you want to see how was last year compared to this year, you're using data. You're using numbers that existed, and in order to find out where's it this year, in order to maybe make some changes.
Exactly. Always a continuous improvement, even in our own lives. We apply that daily.
Exactly. So now manufacturers, they want to know constantly what's going on my shop floor. Where is that part at? When can I deliver? Do I need to run overtime? And you pointed out earlier the resources, individuals, people. I'm not talking machines here right now, just the individuals. They're retiring. They're taking all this knowledge with them, or the newcomers are coming in and they're not up to par with all these old timers that are retiring. So they're operating at a lower level than the experts that were there. So somehow you need to make up when you produce or where that time goes. So in your experience, when you're out and evaluating companies and looking and really diving down with a magnifying glass of how their operations operate or how they function, what do you see? What are some of the critical pains that they see that potentially our listeners are having too, but they don't really know how to resolve it?
Yeah, that's a great question. When you do look at manufacturing, whether it's molds or dyes or aerospace, a lot of these industries all face the same challenges. And one of the major ones is resource utilization. Maximizing your resources, so that you're not buying an extra machine if you don't need it. Identifying your bottlenecks, right? Maybe it's more people you need to add to the equation to make it balance out. So that's one of the major, I'd say, top of the list is resource utilization and identification of bottlenecks.
I think you're 100% correct, because when we go to IMTS is happening next year again, obviously, and there's always, companies always think that, all right, in order to produce more, I need to buy a new machine. And they're just buying machines upon machine upon machine. And really, when you walk in, I know when I walk into a shop, I look at the utilization or the machines that are running. And then you all of a sudden you then ask the question, well, what's going on with this machine here? Why is this one standing here? And so forth. And I think companies are finally getting to the point of, do I need to add an extension to my building? Really? Do I really need to do this expense? Do I need to buy a new machine for the manufacturing aspect? Do I need to hire 2 more people in order to get this done? I think they finally are realizing this, that, wait a minute, I need to take a step back and see what I got.
No, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And another really big thing to look at is the process itself. A lot of companies are just running, okay, the machine's running at 100% utilization, great. But when you dig into the process and understand that the efficiency of the process could be maybe, improved, let's say, in a very quantitative way, sometimes we're looking at 3 times the output or throughput of a resource. Right there, you're able to use one machine. We're going to just use a machine as an example. But if you had one machine and you can triple the throughput just by enhancing your process or streamlining everything, you can now do the same work of 3 machines with one machine. Put that in perspective. That's something that's very much overlooked as well, because a lot of times the runtime is all that managers are really trying to monitor, but that's not really the complete equation of utilization.
So is this partially the reason why companies purchase maybe more mill turns or turn mills, where you can do more milling and turning at the same time to combine the processes together?
Yes, of course. That's a great point, because you can really do everything in one setup. And when you're not transferring a piece or work piece from one machine to another, you're guaranteed that position that you're working on, the pickup, is always the same from one process, if it's all in one, right? Whether it's milling, turning, drilling, all of these can be done on one machine. That's super impactful on the overall quality.
We have one client of ours that has really looked at the way how he is machining, because he has multiple stages of machines, and he has looked at this process flow going from one machine to the next, and evaluated the time that it took for piece A to go from machine 1 to machine 2 to machine 3, and took that data to the next level and said, you know what, I need to rearrange my entire machine environment and maybe introduce some other option, if that's a automation cell or something like this, to automate more. And this is really where data comes into play to change those processes in order to effect the outcome in a positive light.
Exactly. And a great way of measuring that, Michael, is to have an MES in place where you can take your let's say, traditional way of machining or processing a part and compare it to your investment into an automation cell. You can look at the quality also, because the quality guaranteed in an automation scenario will be much improved. But these are all things that can be tracked as well with an MES. So again, you're really bringing your whole shop floor into a digital environment so that you can capture this in real time and make some decisions that could be very impactful on overall costs
So
and deliveries.
can you track, because you're talking right now all about tracking the part and machines and so forth, can you track the part within a manufacturing environment of where that part particularly is located now instantaneously and give feedback to where this part is and maybe how much has been machined on this particular part?
Absolutely. That's all points that can be looked at in an MES system in real time. Logistics is really getting to be a big topic as well, I'm finding. And an MES connects to the logistics as well. It's not something, of course, there's hardware involved with the logistics. A lot of people are looking at RFID solutions with Wi-Fi. There's different things out there, and really there's no one direction that I would feel comfortable in saying this is the way. Although the data from the locations of the logistics internally in a shop floor can also be displayed and connected to all the items in an MES. So to answer your question, absolutely, you can say, okay, this specific part is at machine number 1 or in the assembly bay number 2, just by looking at your screen. So you don't really have to go around and look for the part. The time savings are just, it's super when it comes to reducing the amount of time that people are walking around, talking to people, looking for different materials, or has the material arrived? All of these questions are very big. And even if we looked at like a Tevis programmer on his station, and he wants to know how big the block size is, or all of this can be recorded directly in MES and be available right in front of him on his screen as he's programming. So this is very valuable.
So right now, I have to assume a lot of the companies that are using MES systems, I should say, in order to track where a part is, they use some kind of scanning system to scan a barcode or something similar to that. But from what I heard and what I've seen already, you could even make area zones, Bluetooth area zones. So the moment that particular part arrives, a signal gets transmitted via Bluetooth or whatever signal gets transferred, and it can automatically trigger the notification that, okay, the part has arrived without even you manually having to scan physically that particular job. Is that valid?
That is valid. And that's the direction that a lot of companies are trying to go these days. There's obviously some struggles and some hurdles to jump over when it comes to the connectivity of the Wi-Fi or Bluetooth signals in an environment that's nothing but steel and concrete, right? So that's a struggle.
So a lot of companies, they're dealing also not just with one plant, they have multiple plants. Does that cause an issue for any of the MES systems out there? And can that be tracked?
Yes, absolutely. There is a struggle for some MES systems to be able to deliver that, although it's something that can be overcome. We look at sometimes cloud solutions for sharing a common MES installation between different locations, and that is really a powerful solution. And it gives the ability for all of the different locations to see everything from intercompany, whether it be at a different site or not, and to see the transparency that's available there and the ability to reduce the amount of calls and meetings to find out the status of a job. That's super impactful as well, because now you're freeing up your managers to be able to manage other aspects of the manufacturing or the business.
So do you currently see that there's a lot of meetings that are still being done in the morning meetings to discuss what kind of jobs are being processed today, and maybe Excel sheets are being passed around to let them know what jobs are going to be done? Do you still see that quite a bit?
Absolutely. That's something that we're trying to fade out with the MES, let's say in the future coming up. But every company that I visit has a morning meeting. And sometimes you're involving anywhere from, maybe 10 to even 50 or 60 managers. And you're taking away at least a half hour, if not an hour of their day. So when you take a look at that and put that into, a monetary value, this is really a large cost for, a work in progress meeting every morning. So this is something, again, that you can have all the information that's really pertaining to you directly in front of you on your computer, on a display, and you could just click through the information that's pertinent to you. And what we're finding as well is that in these meetings, you're really listening to the problems of, let's say, 4 or 5 departments, when really only one of those departments is important to you specifically.
And really, you're listening to the problems that have already occurred in those meetings, not the problems that are going to be coming up. So what happens then if some of these companies are doing morning meetings and then using Excel sheets, if during the middle of the day a machine goes out or 2 of the employees have to leave because of illness? What happens then? Do they have to have another meeting in order to discuss, we need to move this part to here, or what happens?
Yeah, that really depends on the culture of the company itself. But a lot of times what we're seeing is that it doesn't get discussed until the next morning. So they're being reactive instead of being proactive, right? Where with an MES system, if, John and George go home for the day, then you can just automatically put them in the system as not available. And then the work gets shuffled around to accommodate this new capacity that's available from the resources.
So it seems like that the current way that we're seeing that companies are still doing quite a bit seems awfully costly and not effective, because if you cannot react instantaneously and you only react after the fact, by that time the machines are still standing idle for at least 6 hours or so until you have the next meeting, or even they could have been utilized for the end of the a day's work or the night shift. So this becomes very ineffective, very inefficient, and no wonder you're not going to make your milestones.
Exactly. And another great point that I would like to make as well is that really by tracking all of the quality errors that you've had in your processes, the rework itself, a huge buzzword in the industry, as always. Although when you can now put documents to support the different quality issues that are really recurring, then you can put something in place in your process to get ahead of that. A corrective measure that's going to be proactive again. So this is something that is really super important when it comes to processes. And with an MES, you can capture all that. Right.
I was just asked in this last visit that I had with a client, we were talking about MES and what can be done with it. And he was asking me, what about, can I look ahead in the future of when I can maybe shut down my machine for maintenance? An MES system, can it track or find the perfect time to take that machine down, looking at the jobs that are coming up, for example?
Absolutely. Yeah. You can look at the capacity and the workload and find a spot, as you say, to kind of not interrupt your productive work. That's very important.
But how does, ProLice, that's the product that we're talking about. ProLice is a Tevis product, obviously, and we know about it. It has been around for, 30-odd years already, Marty?
Yes. Yep.
So that particular system that we're talking about right now, but that can be done with any MES system too. ProLice is just what we know quite well, and we see some advantages of it compared to some of the other systems that are out there. But how does it really go through? Does it have like a magic wizard inside of the ProLice system that waves its wand and automatically restructures everything if a machine breaks down? Or how is that being done?
It's a great question, and one that I get often. But really, the magic that's happening is that it's an algorithm that considers the capacity and the workload of all the jobs in the shop. And it is as easy as just hitting a button, and it does the best fit to fill the capacity to 100% on all of your resources. Now, if it does run into an issue where there's not enough capacity on a resource, then it can't magically fix that for you, but it can identify where the problem is, and then the decision can be made. So it's really providing the data for real-time supporting of decision making, right? So maybe the final answer would be to outsource a certain component to a supplier, or possibly you can, not deliver late, but maybe move a milestone for the start of assembly, let's say if machining's running behind. So all of these become an option. And when you find the best option possible, then you can use the system again to give you the best scenario. And then if everything comes up okay and there's no conflicts, then you can feel confident moving forward with that schedule, and that everything will be scheduled according to the capacity and not bringing anything over capacity.
Right. So has it ever happened in some of the shops that you walked into that errors appear on their manual tracking systems or the Excel systems where they just fat-fingered the wrong job numbers in there and stuff like this? Has that ever happened, or did people run into this? And then how does ProLice kind of deal with that?
So quite honestly, it's a huge topic. And I could honestly say that people put aside time from their day to fix those kind of errors, even if it's just reporting time to a job, right? Or like you say, maybe they're using an Excel and instead of 10 hours, they put in 100 hours, whatever it might be. So people are actually dedicating part of their day to that. And that's a huge problem, because they could be doing other things, more beneficial things to the business during that time. But the way that ProLice works with this is that it provides a list of tasks directly to each individual resource, whether it be a person or a machine. And on the task itself, you just click on it, enter your time, and that's it. Everything is taken care of in that task, because the task is then related. It's relational data. Again, coming back to that buzzword, because it's related to the job, to the component, to the resource, to the time of day, to the time spent. So there's so many data points. There's close to 80, 100 data points that are captured with that one time tracking from a person. So tracking time to the wrong job is really not possible in our system like that.
Right. So from some of the companies that are using ProLice today and that you interact with them and so forth, what do they say? What are some of the improvements that they have seen from switching from their manual processes or from just using an ERP to actually utilizing an MES system such as ProLice, for example? What are some of the advantages that they saw?
Well, I will say one of the biggest things that sticks out for me, the biggest, let's say, solution that's come from our MES is identifying bottlenecks. We had a customer who thought that their bottleneck was in the machining department, while actually it was in a tryout department. So by being able to identify the bottleneck, then you can address the bottleneck. Right. Otherwise, if you're thinking it's in a different area, but you have no data to really back it up, you're making decisions without support from data. And that could be a dangerous and slippery slope, because you could start investing into the wrong area if you're thinking of bottlenecks in a different place. So that's been really huge. And number two, I would say the transparency of information in between departments. For the management to be able to see the data, everything becomes transparent and available for everyone. So nobody's kept in the dark, right?
I think that is a huge point that everybody can see, and when I go into shops, they love to put that kind of stuff on big monitors to see where the efficiency is at, how much money they have saved today because a certain department is that much more efficient, and it almost becomes a competition within a company if you have Department A having so much more efficiency and saves the company so much more dollars and makes so much more profit, while another department is a little bit behind. There's this sporting competition going on that I've seen.
Yes, that's a great point as well. And that brings me to the third, let's say, most important point is the accountability. To have everybody accountable for their work. And it really becomes transparent at that point. If somebody, maybe they're taking a little longer on a task, but maybe it's not their fault. Maybe they need more training, but it really helps you identify the needs of the workforce itself and the machines, right? So again, I don't like to use the term resource for people and machines, but in an MES system, that is really the bottom line, is knowing the resource and its capacity and its capabilities, its skills. Right.
Well, we are one heck of a machine. I got to say that.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
So, in I know you can't say too much about it, but what's in the forecast for ProLice? What are some of the things that are right now rumbling within the ProLice team? What is being developed, and what's new that's going to be coming up that people can really open up their eyes to see what it can do?
Well, there is a lot of talk and in the industry as well as internally with our team, but the future is artificial intelligence. And that's something that, we're going to see more and more tools come forward to help understand processes and the continuous improvement aspect to enhance processes. And really, when you get into the whole AI world, like the AI is nothing new. We've had artificial intelligence on our phones for a decade, right? But now that it's really being labeled as artificial intelligence, people are more aware, let's say. But that's definitely the future, is to take all of this data that we're collecting. And, in an MES system, you are collecting tons of information, tons of data points. But to take that data and make something very let's say, fruitful of it, to be able to take it and improve your processes and your overall throughput, your costs, reduce costing, and really stay competitive with the industry. Because if at this point, if you're not shifting towards a digital mindset or initiative, you're really, in the next years, you'll be left behind.
So could you see in the near future that there's no need for a person to watch the MES system and then click on the trigger to change the algorithm because a machine went down or a guy went home or anything like that, that AI can potentially automatically react and seeing that a level is going up or down. And once it crosses that threshold level, then it automatically recalculates the structures or the timetables in order to provide you the most efficient process.
Yes, absolutely. And quite honestly, I see a lot of those tools already available, minus the algorithm, right? So the algorithms are coming, that's no doubt. But when you look into the whole data world and the ability to manipulate data or monitor data with an analytical module, let's say, a lot of these opportunities are going to be here before we know it. It's advancing so fast. It's amazing.
Right. Well, MES and the entire transformation of our manufacturing industry right now is an exciting period to be involved in because everything is running on data nowadays. And you probably are getting knocks on the doors constantly about, hey, how can we improve this or that?
Yes.
So from your perspective, what should companies look for, or what should companies do? Obviously, they should reach out to you. That's a given. But what should they look out for, and what should they do in order to improve?
Well, I think that the first step, and please do feel free to reach out. I'd be more than happy to talk more about our MES solution. But really, the first step is to get into classifying the parts inside of your factory. A lot of steps can be taken to prepare for an MES system. If you're not really organized inside of your four walls, it's going to be very difficult to try to apply an MES solution and think that it's going to be magical and take care of everything on its own. It does require a lot of upfront preparation when it comes to the manufacturing of your processes, to define processes, define milestone structures, and really understand that the MES is going to be something supporting your processes. Right, but we can't magically make a process with a click of a button. The process has to be defined before an MES solution can be applied.
Right. Well, that's some great advice that hopefully our listeners can take home with them and really prepare for the next generation of manufacturing. And MES and your team of the ProLice group, they're phenomenal. So hats off to you. Thank you for coming on this podcast, Marty. Any final thoughts before I let you go?
No, but thank you very much for having me, Michael. And I just take this opportunity to thank everybody who made it to the end of the podcast here. And it's always great that people are getting this information and finding it useful. I would also offer, again, feel free to reach out. I love this topic. It's really been the focus in my last 10 years of my career. I've really focused on automation, digitalization, and process overall. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. It was exciting to have you back on the podcast in order to learn a little bit more about MES. So thank you. To all of you guys out there that are listening and wondering what can you do in order to prepare, reach out to Marty. You can reach out to him by contacting us here at Tebis directly. That goes for all the topics that you want to hear and you want to have us talk about, and maybe get guest speakers in. Send it to marketing@tebisusa.com, marketing@tebisusa.com. You can get your questions in there, and then we can get you in contact with Marty directly in order to answer some of your questions. But if you've not yet prepared or not yet looked into MES systems and how to automate and how to prepare and how to be more efficient and control your environment by utilizing data and seeing what this solution can do for your operation, if you've not yet done that, it's time that you do. Because as Marty said, you're falling behind if you've not used data yet in order to identify your bottlenecks or the problems that you're running into. And there's no need for your morning meetings that last 1-2 hours besides getting 2 cups of coffee and several donuts in you. But there's no need for that kind of stuff. The MES system ProLice can take of all the issues that you're running into. Now, I know this comes across almost like salesy that we want. No, but MES is where you need to be. So I thank you for listening. I'm looking forward to the next episode. So listen in at your favorite podcast places that you normally listen to your podcast. And I thank you for listening. Until then, bye-bye.
Thank you for joining this episode of All Access. Please leave a comment or review with your feedback or what you'd like to hear in future episodes. To learn more about manufacturing technology solutions and Tebis's capabilities, visit our website at Tebis. That's TEBIS.com.